And David came to Nombah, to the priest Abimelech. And Abimelech was astonished to meet him, and said to him, Why is it that you are alone, and no one with you? And David said to the priest, The king has charged me with a matter today, and said to me, Let no one know the matter about which I send you, and concerning which I have charged you. And I have testified solemnly to the lads in the place called Faith of God, Philani Elimoni. And now if there are in your hand 5 loaves, give into my hand what is found. And the priest answered David and said, There are no permitted loaves in my hand, for there are only consecrated loaves. If the lads have kept themselves from a woman, then they shall eat. And David answered the priest and said to him, Indeed, we have kept ourselves from a woman yesterday and the 3rd day. When I go on a journey, all the lads have become consecrated, and this journey is profane. Wherefore it shall be consecrated today through my implements. And Abimelech the priest gave him the loaves of the presentation, for there was no bread there except the loaves of the presence, which are removed from the presence of the Lord, to be replaced by hot bread on the day that he took them. And one of the lads of Saul was there in that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg the Syrian, tending Saul's mules. And David said to Abimelech, See if there is a spear or sword here by your hand, for I have not brought my sword and my implements in my hand, because the king's business was in haste. And the priest said, Behold the sword of Goliath the Elaphile, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, and it is wrapped in a garment. If you will take this for yourself, take it, for there is none here except this one. And David said, Behold, there is none like it. Give it to me. And he gave it to him. And David rose and fled in that day from before Saul. And David went to King Anchos of Gath. And the servants of Anchos said to him, Is this not David, the king of the land? Did the dancers not take the lead for this one, saying, Saul killed amongst his thousands, and David amongst his 10,000s? And David put the words in his heart, and was very much afraid from before King Anchos of Gath. And he changed his face before him, and he put on an act in that day, and he drummed on the doors of the city, and gestured with his hands, and fell against the doors of the gate, and his spittle ran down on his beard. And Anchos said to his servants, Look, see an epileptic man. Why did you bring him to me? Indeed, do I lack epileptics, that you have brought him to have an epileptic fit before me? This fellow shall not come into the house. And David left there, and escaped, and came to the Odolam cave. And his brothers and his father's house heard and went down there to him. And every one in distress, and every one in debt, and every one troubled in soul were gathering to him, and he was leader over them, and there were with him about 400 men. And David went from there to Massapha of Moab, and said to the king of Moab, Let now my father and my mother be with you until I know what God will do for me. And he persuaded the person of the king of Moab, and they were dwelling with him all the days that David was in the stronghold. And the prophet Gad said to David, Do not remain in the stronghold. Leave, and you shall enter into the land of Judah. And David left and went and settled in the city of Sarek. And Saul heard that David had been recognized, and the men who were with him. And Saul was sitting on the hill below the cultivated field, which is in Ramah, and his spear in his hand, and all his servants stood around him. And Saul said to his servants who stood around him, and said to them, Do hear, sons of Benjamin, if the son of Jesse will truly give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all officers of hundreds, and officers of thousands. For you are all in collusion against me, and there is no one who uncovers my ear, when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse. And there is no one of you who feels sorry for me, or uncovers my ear, because my son stirred up my slave against me as an enemy, as this day. And Doeg the Syrian, who was in charge of Saul's mules, answered and said, I have seen the son of Jesse coming to Nombah to Abimelech son of Achitob, the priest, and he was inquiring of God for him, and he gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Elaphile. And the king sent to call Abimelech son of Achitob, and all the sons of his father, the priests who were at Nombah, and all of them came to the king. And Saul said, Listen now, son of Achitob. And he said, Here I am, speak, sir. And Saul said to him, Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, that you gave him bread and a sword, and that you ask through God for him, to set him against me as an enemy, as this day? And he answered the king and said, And who among all your slaves is like David, faithful and the king's son-in-law, an executor of your every behest, and honored in your house? Have I begun today to ask through God for him? By no means. Let not the king impute anything to his slave, or to the whole of my father's house. For your slave knew nothing of all this, a matter small or large. And Saul the king said, You shall die by death, Abimelech, you and all your father's house. And the king said to the runners who stood around him, Draw near, and put to death the priests of the Lord, because their hand is with David, and because they knew that he was fleeing, and they did not uncover my ear. And the servants of the king were not willing to extend their hands to attack the priests of the Lord. And the king said to Doeg, You, turn and attack the priests. And Doeg the Syrian turned and put to death the priests of the Lord in that day, 305 men, all bearing an ephod. And Noba, the city of the priests, he smote with the edge of the sword, from man up to woman, from child up to infant, and calf and donkey and sheep. And one son of Abimelech, son of Achitob, escaped, and his name was Abiathar, and he fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul put to death all the priests of the Lord. And David said to Abiathar, I knew in that day that Doeg the Syrian, that telling he would tell Saul, I am responsible for the lives of your father's house. Stay with me, do not be afraid. For where I shall seek a place for my life, I shall also seek one for your life, for you are safe with me. And it was told to David, saying, Behold, the Aliphiles are fighting in Keilah, and they are despoiling, they are trampling the threshing floors. And David inquired through the Lord, saying, Shall I go and attack these Aliphiles? And the Lord said, Go, and you shall attack among these Aliphiles and rescue Keilah. And David's men said to him, Behold, we are afraid here in Judea, and how will it be if we go to Keilah? We shall enter into the spoils of the Aliphiles. And David added to inquire again through the Lord. And the Lord answered him and said to him, Arise and go down to Keilah, for I am giving the Aliphiles into your hands. And David went, and the men who were with him, to Keilah, and fought with the Aliphiles, and they fled from before them. And he brought away their livestock, and dealt a heavy blow among them. And David rescued the inhabitants of Keilah. And it happened, when Abiathar son of Abimelech fled to David, that he came down with David to Keilah, having an ephod in his hand. And it was told Saul that David had come to Keilah. And Saul said, God has sold him into my hands, for he has shut himself in, having entered a town of doors and bars. And Saul summoned all the people to war, to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. And David learned that Saul was not keeping the evil concerning him quiet. And David said to the priest Abiathar, Bring the ephod of the Lord here. And David said, O Lord, the God of Israel, hearing your slave has heard that Saul seeks to come to Keilah, to destroy the city on my account. Will it be shut up? And now will Saul come down as your slave has heard? O Lord, the God of Israel, tell your slave. And the Lord said, It will be shut up. And David arose, and the men who were with him, about 400, and they departed from Keilah. And they were going wherever they went. And it was told Saul that David had escaped from Keilah, and he gave up to go out. And David settled in the wilderness of Masirem at the Narrows, and he sat in the wilderness in Mount Ziph in the dry country. And Saul was seeking him all the days, and the Lord did not give him into his hands. And David saw that Saul was coming out to seek David, and David was in the dry mountain in New Ziph. And Saul's son Jonathan set out and came to David at noon, and strengthened his hands in the Lord. And he said to him, Do not be afraid, for the hand of my father Saul shall not find you, and you shall be king over Israel, and I shall be second to you. And my father Saul knows that this is so. And both of them made a covenant before the Lord. And David sat at noon, and Jonathan departed to his house. And the Ziphites from the dry country went up to Saul on the hill, saying, Behold, Is David not hiding among us in Masirah in the Narrows, in Nu in the hill of Hekelah, which is on the right of Jessamun? And now, as for everything that is on the king's mind for a descent, let him descend to us. They have shut him up into the king's hands. And Saul said to them, May you be blessed to the Lord, for you felt sorry for me. Do go and make ready once more, and know his place where his foot will be, quickly there where you said, lest he be cunning. And look around and know, and we will go with you, and it will be, if he is in the land, that I will search him out among all the thousands of Judah. And the Ziphites set out and went ahead of Saul. And David and his men were in the Mon wilderness, in the evening to the right of Jessamun. And Saul went and his men to search for him, and they reported to David, and he went down to the rock that is in the wilderness of Mon. And Saul heard and pursued after David into the wilderness of Mon. And Saul and his men went on one side of this mountain, and David was sheltering himself to get away from before Saul. And Saul and his men encamped against David, and his men to capture them. And a messenger came to Saul, saying, Hurry and come, for the Aliphiles have made a raid on the land. And Saul turned back from pursuing after David, and went to meet the Aliphiles. Therefore that place was called the Divided Rock.